So before we begin, I've got a question I need to answer. For the first week of booting this game up, I got several people asking me, is this game worth the price it's being sold for? No, it's not. Because close to the launch date, I had said on Twitter that I was debating on refunding the game anyway and waiting for a sale, as while I had fun with it, the price didn't really feel worth it, and in the end, I did just that. I refunded the game and I was going to leave it there and pick it up later. However, later the same day, I was given a review key. So as a way to say thank you for Overkill for saving me £45, and for feeling slightly bad about it, I bought the upgrade to the deluxe edition, which is roughly about £16.50, and honestly, if the game was around this price, more realistically being £20, then yeah, I'd definitely say it's worth the money. But for how this game is currently, the price is a fucking joke. So with that being said, let's take a look at Overkill's The Walking Dead. And one last thing, there will be spoilers. So what do we know about Overkill Software? Well, they were the creators of the most recently deceased Payday 2, a fairly successful game that was known for being a buggy mess and for having some weird lore behind it. So it's clear that they're not the most competent company in the world, but with that game lasting 5 years with a ton of new content, albeit an overflow of DLC, you'd expect their next game to be much better. But after waiting almost 4 years since the announcement of the game to come around, it was received with a mixed reception. So the question is, what went wrong? Well, for a start, this had 3 engine changes. It first started on Diesel, the same engine as Payday 2, which is a god-awful engine. It was then started again on Valhalla, which is either a point-and-click engine or a web-based engine. I really can't find the information about this one. I know Starbreeze own it and that's about it. Which, if that doesn't scream disaster on the horizon, I don't know what will. But finally, Overkill restarted the project again, but this time around on the Unreal 4 engine, with Valhalla slapped inside as an RNG plugin of sorts. So we're looking at arguably one of the most best engines up to date, or rather a personal favourite of mine, holding games like Killing Floor 2 on Unreal 3 and Earthfall on Unreal 4. So this game can't be a complete disaster, right? Well, throughout this you'll get the idea and determine your own answer. As for the game itself upon launch, you're looking at the game with a very basic meta loop system, a really small post-game scenario, 6 playable characters and a fairly short campaign, which spans around almost 10 levels. If you could even say it's 10 levels, it's more like 6, but before I get the campaign underway, let's delve into the actual characters of this game. So from the start of the game, you're given a selection of 4 characters to choose from. Grant being my favourite, who is a tactician with his proficiencies in sniper rifles, revolvers, and best of all, a stick. As for his signature skill, he has a marking system which will allow increased damage inflicted on the target he's selected for yourself and other players. And as for his craftable item, you get a throwable Molotov that becomes really good later on, but the fire effects look like utter shit. Second best for me is Maya, the game's medic who focuses on SMGs and a machete, with the ability to revive players with more health and a craftable medic back which everybody can use. It just basically means you're a better doctor than the rest of them who have the self-heal bandage. Third up is Aiden, who is focused on shotguns, pistols and a baseball bat, with the ability to take reduced damage over a short period of time with a throwable flashbang. That only works on humans in stealth and fuck all on aggroed walkers, so he's kind of a bit shit. And then finally there's Heather, who I didn't get any footage for. Each character will become useful for various reasons due to the way they play, meaning the more optimal setup would be to have one player play as each character. But for some stupid reason in this game, there is no restrictions on who you can play, so you can all play the same character at the same time. So if you all wanted to be Grant, then by all means Grant away. It will be a Grant experience, and most of all, there'll be no Aiden, the other members of your team. If you unsub for that one, I completely understand. The character leveling system in this game is very basic and dumbed down compared to what Overkill normally do. Instead of mixing and matching skills to your fancy to mix up how the character works, in The Walking Dead you can just upgrade everything. But you can only use skill points if you've upgraded your camp, meaning Grant has had unspent skill points for the past week. I really don't like how they've dealt with making character progression feel longer than it actually is. Leveling really doesn't take too long in this game, because you get increased XP when you're on higher difficulties, and the XP also increases depending on your level. But each tier of skill points are locked until you upgrade your camp to a certain point. This is done by using supplies, which is simple at first, but then when tier 3 comes along, this takes forever if you don't play the daily missions. Every day you're given 3 daily challenges that go towards bounty. These bounties require 5 challenges to be completed, and the bounty will reward you with some medicine for saving survivors and some blueprints that can be used for upgrading the camp, but you only get 5 blueprints per bounty, and each tier 3 upgrade requires 8 blueprints, so that's what, 32 blueprints? So you need to complete roughly 7 bounties which will each require 5 challenges, so that's 35 challenges, and you only get 3 a day, which means if you want to rush upgrading these to tier 3, then you've got to play the game for at least almost 2 weeks straight. Sure, you get some more blueprints for beating the game and a couple for leveling up past level 30, but for the sake of making the game feel longer, that is an absolute joke. It is clear as day that the developers obviously knew that leveling was too easy in this game, so why not reduce how many skill points you get per level, or why not add more skill points to the character? How about reduce the health taken from walkers when you're grabbed, or how much health you lose from being pinned by a walker? Because if you've just healed and get pinned, say goodbye to that health because you lose it all and there's fuck all you can do about it. As mentioned earlier, you do get 2 more characters, but these are unlocked as we go through the campaign, so I'll get to them as we get there. Much like Telltale's The Walking Dead, this game is partially story driven, which wasn't what I expected originally, but sadly the impact of the campaign into the game is rather lacking. You get these neat looking CG movies at the start of the level, but the levels themselves, while fun at times, really don't feel like they're impacting into the story as much as you'd expect. It all just kind of happens and you're along for the ride, instead of what you'd expect, which is you've done this so this outcome happens. The story starts with Anderson explaining the start of Camp Anderson, a name chosen by Heather apparently and totally not by his own ego. After settling in, another group called the Family turns up and threaten the camp for supplies in exchange for safety. Funnily enough, this is almost identical to the current story arc of The Walking Dead with Negan and the Saviors. It seems like when writing the story, originality went out the window for Kirkman, or maybe it was just a nice nod to the current story in the show. I won't deny I'm not really keen on how the family was just introduced immediately. I was really hoping the first couple of missions would be more focused on the player getting used to the grips of how walkers can take over the environment, and maybe a mission of you clearing out the camp to making it your home. But no, we just kind of got this instead. It's never really explained properly, it just kind of happens, and then the first mission starts and I'm guessing it's the tutorial of sorts? Basically it's just a short little mission with the gates breaking open and then you have to go and board them up again before walkers swarm the camp. Oh, by the way, this is how holdout mode works for the rest of the game, especially for walkers. In the main game you just close up each gate once per wave, and there's a total of 4 waves in this level. Yeah, it's basically shit. A fun little fact is because of this level being so shit, a majority of the people who bought this game refunded it before beating the level because they thought it was so boring and repetitive that this was going to be the rest of the game, and they refunded. And honestly, they're about 40% right. There's also this glaring issue in this mission where once you shut a gate, the walkers just kind of vanish off the earth. I guess they just kind of give up and go home after that, and then other times you'll see the gates just break open with no one there. There's never really a threat in these missions, so it all just seems kind of pointless, but a first mission's a first mission, even if it was a shit first impression. But after you spent roughly 5 to 10 minutes doing this, you find out that somehow the family stole your water purifier, so you need to go and get it back. This is where you're introduced to the more objective focus levels in these games, and honestly these are rather good. They're slowly paced levels with a more linear style of progression, and they work similar to how the TV shows work. While progressing through the environment, you're focusing on scavenging for supplies and keeping noises to a minimum while finishing the objectives given. Throughout each level you'll find various bits and pieces ranging from ammo, parts to craft more consumables like band-aids, the player specific item, or a tool you have equipped. And with these tools you have a couple to choose from, like a wire cutter, a lockpick, a chem kit, and a couple more down the line. These are more of a variety tool, as throughout the level items are placed with these tools in mind, so certain things can be locked behind them, like opening a gate door or dismantling a trap, or an item for extra supplies, or more importantly opening a chest which may have a weapon or mod case inside. If you get the weapon case, the secondary objective starts and you have to take this to the truck at the end and secure the item in question. Like I said, this will only appear for the weapon case, as the mod case will just be picked up like a normal item. If you beat the mission, you'll be greeted with a loot box animation after the mission's over where you'll find your new equipment and weapons for your stash. I won't deny, finding these extra weapons and mods is kind of fun and feels rather rewarding at the end of the level. There's also pieces of lore which are scattered around all over the place, some of these being specified to playable characters. If you find the character specific ones, you unlock some cosmetic sets for your character, and while if you find the normal world lore, you find concept art for the level. There is another reward you get after the end of the game, but we'll get back to that later. Finally, you can find survivors around the map who, just like the weapon cases, need to be escorted to the truck. If you can get these back to the truck, they become recruitable survivors which you can either send off for missions or assign them to workstations around the camp. The workstations work as a way to buff the character, ranging from an extra bar of health generated for each character to less noise when moving about. They're basically little benefits, but if you want to unlock these you need to level up a survivor by sending them out on missions. As for the missions themselves, they work behind the scenes with the duration of them crossing over a few in-game missions. If they complete these tasks you'll be rewarded with various items depending on the payout shown originally. But be warned, if they fail these missions, there is a chance that survivor will return injured, and if you don't treat them fast enough, they will die, and your camp will lose morale. What this morale does, however, I have no idea. Going back to the main story, once you've captured the water purifier, you get smacked back into another holdout mission, but these are more focused on enemy AI compared to walkers. And honestly, the AI in this game is just terrible. They're designed to be similar to an army soldier. These guys can take a few hits to get down, with headshots being rather inconsistent. sometimes taking 2 or 3 shots to take them down via the head. If they have a helmet, I can understand that, but the same element appears to apply for standard baseball caps, and yeah, this is rather dumb for holdout missions. Unfortunately as well, with this game, there's 4 of these missions. You've got the first one, which is the Walker, then you've got the family, and then you've got 2 more with another camp which you'll meet later on. But before that, you find out that they're at the mall and you have to go there and basically just kill them, but that's when you meet the other group of survivors. And these guys are like military soldiers, so they're much tougher than what the family are, and with this enemy AI being so bad, it just makes things 10 times worse. But if you can get through the mission, you learn that Raina, who is the leader of the camp, is about to be executed, so you go to save her. For some reason. And you know how I mentioned how the AI in this game is pretty bad? Well, the survivor AI pathing is a bit hit and miss at times, but Raina's fucking dreadful. Her pathing is so inconsistent, she'll stop at various things and get stuck at various places. There was a point in the mission where she was trying to get off a truck and she was there for roughly 5 minutes. And it felt like an achievement on its own level when she finally figured out how to drop down. Thankfully with the survivors in this game, they never die. If they could die however, she'd be dead before the first walker even existed at this rate, because my god, she is so slow. Well, once Raina finally figured out how her legs work, we managed to get back to the camp, and this is where the first little twist in this campaign comes in. So the other bunch of survivors from the mall are introduced as the brigade and aren't very happy with you, and have basically come to threaten you and end up destroying your camp, just like the saviors did in the show. Which, well done Kirkman, the story about the saviors in the show was shit, and it's shit in the game, and best of all, did I mention this game is canon? Because it is. Before the camp goes up in flames, the leader of the brigade kills a character, and the character they killed off was Heather, which I'll be honest, I was surprised. I didn't really expect them to kill off a playable character, especially in this type of game, let alone so early into the story. But it's not early into the story because that was the halfway point. And that was only 3 missions. So after you beat this mission, Heather is no longer playable, which was hence my lack of footage earlier, but don't worry, in exchange for Heather, you get to unlock the new first playable character, which is Raina, the leader of the family. She comes equipped with a crossbow, which I hate, a pistol, which is fine, and a pickaxe that is underwhelming. But her special skill is to spot items with a vision of sorts, and a smoke bomb that is super useful in a pinch. But this stuff isn't new, this is actually what Heather's loadout would have been, so she's an exact copy and paste of Heather, which is okay I guess? But it means that there's only 5 different characters, not 6. I'm guessing what Overkill wanted to do was make it fit in with the Walking Dead universe, so killing off a part of the main cast isn't anything new, but they did overlook a fairly big issue with this. So once Heather dies, you can't play her in any of the later levels, which is fine, that would be to be expected, even though this screenshot from Overkill's Twitter shows Heather on the final level of the game. But the problem I noticed is you can play as Raina in the previous missions, so Hell or High Water, Listening In, and hell, even the level where you save Raina, you can play as Raina escorting Raina back to the truck, saving Raina from the brigade. Yeah, that just doesn't sound right either. The problem I have with this is if you're going to have a story-driven narrative, you can't half-arse it. And what's stupid is that this is so simple to fix. Keep the shared equipment and stats between Raina and Heather, but for any mission before the brigade attacking the camp, the game should automatically swap the player model back to Heather. Otherwise you're wasting time making this second character and also wasting the consumer's money. If you pre-order or buy the deluxe edition of this game, you get some cosmetics focused for the first 4 characters in the game. As for Raina and the 6th character, you don't get these cosmetic items, which is just stupid on its own level, but having a character inaccessible with paid content behind them? Yeah, I'm sorry Overkill for how little that is. That's still kind of scummy. To make matters worse, from what I've been told as well, Overkill don't plan on fixing this at all. Yes, you heard me, they don't want to fix this according to some players I've spoken to. Overkill have been asked about this from day one and they basically said no, we're never addressing this issue, Heather can't be used ever again. Then what's the point of making her a character in the first place if you're just going to make her unplayable? You can't have it both ways. Raina shouldn't appear before the mission, but she does. But Heather can't be seen in the missions either. As a continuity standpoint, this is just flat out stupid and makes Overkill and Kirkman look like a bunch of idiots. For any fans of Heather out there, I am so sorry, you're kinda stuck with this one. I get that they were trying to pull a saviour's moment again for this, by killing someone off you'd least expect, but god, do it at the end of the first season, not halfway. Basically not much else happens from here, you have to kind of progress to a second camp which Raina tells you about, which is where you get introduced to another character called Bridger who owns the Bridger camp, but I like to call her Bridge because Bridger sounds like a stupid name. Throughout this mission though you'll be going underground, and one thing I haven't mentioned yet is that the environments in this game look really good. They actually feel like there's life in them, or rather lifeless depending on how you look at the situation. The lighting is brilliant, the graphics don't look terrible, but the optimization in this game is pretty appalling. There are times in this game where the game will just randomly chuck for no reason. I remember at the point in listening in when you get to the radios, my frame rate went from about 110 to about 20 and it didn't fix itself for the rest of the level. There's also the issue with this game that if you're using a hard drive or a hybrid drive, the loading takes forever, and for someone like myself using an SSD, I then get punished for how long you have to load into the game. I have to wait for everybody to load in, and when matchmaking is so inconsistent, I could be spending about 5 to 10 minutes waiting for the game to load. How they fucked this up on Unreal is beyond me. When you get near to the end of this level, you'll be seen at an elevator where you have to hold out waiting for the elevator to come down. At this point, the brigade will find you and then start to attack you. Once the elevator arrives though, you just have to get in and then click the elevator and the mission ends. However, when we were playing it the other day, one of my friends died just as the elevator got here, so when we got in, the game thought, oh, this is still waiting for a player, so we got stuck there. And before you could respawn in a minute, a grenade was thrown in and killed us all.
Just anywhere, yeah, there we go. Yeah, push the button.
I can't, waiting for other players.
What do you mean waiting for what does it mean waiting for other players? We're all here!
Oh no.
Peace, have you bled out?
Yes, I'm fully dead. You do not see that.
I can do this in my sleep.
Connor, press the button. Try it at least.
Waiting for other players. We have to wait for you to fucking respawn.
That's an interesting issue. I guess because it activated with 4 people alive, it still needs to be...
some walkers at least. Or are we all just...
Oh
no.
My god!
Fuck off. Seriously?
Yes, you got Mayday.
Oh my god, what the fuck? That mission takes roughly half an hour to do. So we wasted half an hour because the game glitched, and then we had to do it again. That is a big problem with this game. If you die near the end of the level, there is no checkpoint system. You have to start it all the way from the beginning. And if you're playing in a pub match, because everybody leaves, you have to back out, go back in, match make, wait 10 minutes to load in, and then do it again. And if they're not from your region, because it doesn't seem to have a region filter, you'll be lagging like a bitch. I've seen this so much and it's so irritating. Now, to repeat myself, I really do like the missions where it's objective focused. The layout of the maps are really nice, and yeah, they do reuse some areas at points. But the game is just so buggy, and there's so much wrong with it that I can't help but get annoyed by it. And I do want to love this game. There is a lot about it which has charm behind it, which is really fun. But Overkill just can't seem to program to save their lives, even with an engine that is supposed to be really good. There are issues from Diesel which I can see in this. I feel like they've just copied the base of the Payday coding again, similar to what Line Game Line did with Raid. And if you do that, you've just got the same issues as before because you couldn't fix them. Now, I'll give Overkill credit. They have been addressing some issues, but the bigger issues are still there and there's been no mention of addressing it. So I don't know how this game is going to look down the line, but we'll have to wait and see. As for the rest of the campaign though, you have about 3 more missions at this point. The first mission is Doctor's Orders, where you have to go and get some medical supplies from the mall which went to earlier, but you start from another entrance and it all feels a little bit different, which is fine. The next mission unfortunately is another holdout with the brigade. Yeah, I'm getting sick of this. And then you get onto the final mission, which is Join or Die. You're on your way to the Lincoln Memorial to kill the leader of the brigade, which I tell you his name, but I forgot it. Similar to Rainer, there's no character development for anyone in this game besides their lore. I know he has a hat, and it's a really bad looking hat, but that's about it. But level wise, you progress through some military camps to the memorial, and at this point there's just basic stuff like powering a generator to open the door, and finding a key to open a gate, and then match a sequence near the end. Okay, yeah, that one is technically different, but the map itself just doesn't feel interesting. Sure, I mean, the level looks nice, and just like the rest of them, they do fit into the Walking Dead environment, but there's nothing throughout the level that grabs me as clever. Although towards the end, you'll see a neat special guest return to the cast. I'll give you a second to figure out who it is. Well, have you given up? Well, I can't be asked to say it myself. Grant, could you take the honours? Heather! Thank you, Grant. Yeah, they can't just have Heather hanging there, and she looks really decomposed, which is quite amusing, because the model, again, looks terrible. What you can do, though, is you can find her bag somewhere in the level as well for a neat little achievement, and that's it. Besides that, you got to go and hack the door open and confront the leader and kill him. Once you've killed him, the mission's basically done, and you just have to escape. While you wait for the truck driver to blow a hole behind the memorial, go back into the room there where the leader was. You'll find some lore there that I'll bring back up in a second, but it's important to pick it up. Once the wall has been breached though, you have to fight your way to the truck through a ton of walkers. And that's it. Season 1 of Overkill's The Walking Dead is over. It teases a plot towards the second season, which starts at the end of the month, and will continue through to June, and thankfully it's all free, but we're not done there. I mentioned a second ago there was that lore you needed to pick up. Once you've done that, go back to the camp and speak to Bridge. She'll give you a hint on where to go next, and you'll start this little sub-quest to unlock the final character, who is Bridger. You get to play as Bridger, who is another tactician similar to Grant but focused in the assault rifle, as well as the axe, which is another melee weapon. Her ability is a little bit different. I don't know it exactly because I haven't really played that much, but I think it's when you get hit you get a brief speed increase so you can get to cover quicker. But her craftable is a mine, and it's like a trip mine so you can place it down then it explodes. She's actually a really good character and it's a nice little reward for the end of the game, especially for the end of the first season. But for the first season, if I was to compare this to the show, it feels like the more recent seasons of the show. The story has a lot of promise behind it, but it just falls flat on its face. And I think that's due to how the story of this game works. It feels really rushed, and again, killing off Heather halfway through was really stupid. They really should have had that as a season finale of, oh, who's going to be killed off, and then at the start of the next month. It'd have gripped the player more than what it did now, because there was no time to get used to Heather. Also, introducing two different factions of survivors at the start of the game didn't really give me enough time to really address either of them. So they kind of just blend into becoming the same as each other, which while we're on the topic of survivors, the amount of family and brigading these missions, as well as the holdout missions, is insane. I think they thought the game would be too easy and boring with just walkers and slapped a ton of survivors into the mix. But remember, it's The Walking Dead where there's meant to be no one alive, so why is there an equivalent to the town fighting me? It's just a shame that Kirkman was helping with this story, and it honestly looks like he didn't care about it either. I think my biggest complaint towards this game currently is the mission options. There's 6 objective missions, 4 holdout missions, 6 expeditions, and 6 camp attacks. The holdout and camp attacks are pretty much identical, with the family somehow appearing in the second camp after they've been wiped out. From what I can see as well, the old camp, once it's gone, you never get those missions, so basically you only ever have 3 at a time. As for the expeditions though, man, these are just so underwhelming, it's sad. These are meant to be the more meta loot for the game. From time to time you'll unlock a mission which is either to rescue a survivor, kill a target, or gather some supplies from one of 2 locations, outside the radio station from listening in, or the mall itself. The layout is basically a snippet of the previous map, with a new area being open exclusively for these expeditions. But that's it. The rest of the map for each expedition is just identical, it's just the objective is slightly different. This could have been such a great feature to have with these random encounters if there was more variety to them instead of just having the layout be the same every single time. The same applies for the defense missions. Due to having 4 of these in the main story, the appeal of the camp attacks became more of a pain in the arse before it even started. And to have these as the first mission of the game, I'm sorry, they were just asking for trouble. Surely they had tested this and thought, hey, this isn't that fun. And then again, piled on top of the endless bugs in this game, it makes me wonder who thought charging £45 for this game was a sane idea. I get that due to the license behind the game it's going to cost more, but for God's sake at least make it worth the money. The leveling is boring, the strict character choice for the plot makes no sense, the AI is overall just shit, and the length of the main story is depressingly short. The only redeeming part is some of the gameplay for the game itself in the main missions is still rather fun. The gunplay is decent at time and the melee isn't awful, but with how its current state is, the game is worth £20 at best. If it was priced at this and then released maybe 2 to 3 years ago, then yeah, this would have been a great game. But with Dying Light 2, Resident Evil 2 and Days Gone on the horizon, sadly Overkill's The Walking Dead is going to fade into the shadows as the game that could have been. And if you're still here after all of that, I hope you enjoyed the video and thanks for watching. My name is Sir Crackerbulb and have a good week. Goodbye.